Thank you all that are joining us today. I'm State Senator Steve Newman, and we have on the group a number of representatives of Senate Finance and Appropriation Committee and the House Appropriations Committee. Today, there will be a chairman, will be myself, and also Delegate McQuinn. A couple of opening comments first from the Senate side. I know that Delegate McQuinn will give kind of a greeting from the House side. On behalf of Senator Howe, who is, I think, just an extraordinary leader for us, we appreciate that, the opportunity to hear from you today. Clearly, a public hearing is critical to our budgeting process. We have set down a couple of kind of normative rules that we have that we'd like to everyone to follow. One is our 3-minute rule so that everyone will have a chance to speak. We will let you know when you're into that 3 minutes, and we would really appreciate it if everyone would kind of keep to that, as this will be a many-hour process, even under those rules. We also would rather if individuals would not read to us remarks. If you have written comments, the staff will provide you a way to make sure we receive those written comments and provide those to members. Those are helpful, but we would really like to hear from each one of you today. We will all be around for most of the time. There could be some coming and going, and not all will be on video at the same time. But please know that the information that you're providing is incredibly important to us. So as we start down this process, thank you again for being willing to communicate with your House and Senate budget leaders. And with that, I'll turn it over to my co-chair, Delegate McQuinn.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning to each of you, and Happy New Year again to my colleagues, as well as those who will be with us today presenting and sharing with us their thoughts on the budget. This is one of 4 virtual hearings on the state budget being held across the Commonwealth today by the Senate Finance and Appropriation and the House Appropriation Committees. Each year, the committees are required, matter of fact, by law, to hold a series of public hearings on the governor's proposal budget, and to give all of you, again, the citizens, as Senator Newman has said, the citizens of Virginia, the opportunity to comment on specific issues of concern. This year, we have changed the format, as many things have changed due to the coronavirus pandemic that all of us have had to deal with. And so Senator Newman have shared some of the ground rules that will help our hearing today go smoothly. And we hope that we have the opportunity, and you will be considering giving everyone an opportunity to be heard in a reasonable amount of time. And so with that, we're giving each person 3 minutes, as it has been shared. We will, again, stay in the meeting until the last speaker has signed up and had the opportunity to be heard. We do want to share with you that as you give your comments, please remember near the end of that 3 minutes, a timer will sound, and please begin to wrap up your comments at that time. After you have completed speaking, staff will move you back into a waiting room where you can continue to watch the hearing or leave it based on your decision. So at this time, again, we thank each of you for being here. We now want to identify and introduce, or allow them to introduce themselves, the colleagues who are with us from House Appropriation, Senate Finance, and the Appropriation Committee at this time. And staff will, at this time, call the names for attendance.
Yes. Delegate McQuinn.
Present.
Delegate Tyler. Delegate Aird. And Delegate Cox.
Here.
Okay. And if I could have my Senate counterpart call roll for the senators.
David, maybe.
I'm sorry, and Delegate Carr.
I think people can see me, but I just.
Good morning. This is Charles with Senate Finance. For Senate members, I'll call the roll. Senator Newman.
Here.
Senator Ruff,
Here.
Senator McClellan.
Here.
Thank you.
Senator Newman, at this time, you.
Okay, so with that, we will begin and we will ask staff to help us facilitate the bringing in of individuals that will participate in the public hearing.
Senator Newman, our first speaker is Takeya Muhammad.
Mr. Muhammad, welcome. And for all, if you will just remember to unmute yourself as you enter, that will help.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Yes. Okay, awesome. Dear Chair of Budget Committee, my name is Takeya Muhammad, and I am here speaking today because it is long overdue that the General Assembly address the gross shortage of community-based services for individuals with brain injury. Over 300,000 Virginians are permanently disabled as a result of brain injury. And current state-supported funding to provide these services is just $6.75 million, or calculated at $6 per person. That's not even enough to buy a meal or a tank of gas. The reason I care and am so passionate about this topic is because at the age of 17, I sustained what is known as a severe diffuse axonal injury, statistically the worst possible form of brain injury. My life was turned upside down and inside out, and after leaving the hospital, I was left to figure out this new life with a new brain, with limited and inadequate services. These unprecedented circumstances yielded difficulties and shortcomings that would take eons to list off, most of which could have been prevented if there were proper community-based services and programs available to me in the unserved community that I lived. But instead, due to disproportionate and limited funding, my mental, emotional, physical, and psychological well-being suffered boundlessly. With adequate funding, case management, community outreach, social rehabilitation, and integrative mechanisms would have made a world of a difference in my and in many of the lives of those completely displaced by such an atrocity. The average person doesn't have the slightest inkling as to what it is like to be abandoned by the same system you depend on to appropriately service you as a citizen, especially in such a detrimental time of need. To this end, this year, we are asking for $570,000 to expand specialized community-based services, brain injury services for case management into unserved areas, and $860,000 to create housing specialist positions at each state-funded community-based brain injury program. I thank you for taking a moment to consider my comments today. And if you have any further questions or would like more information about the points that I have raised this morning, please feel free to contact the Brain Injury Association of Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
The next speaker is Yolanda Ross.
Welcome.
Good morning and Happy New Year. Hello, my name is Yolanda Ross and I live in Henrico County, and I'm a home care worker to our youngest son, who we affectionately call Prince Terrell, who was diagnosed with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy at the age of 8 years old. I've been a home care worker for 11 years. Terrell is now 30 years old, and he still doesn't have a waiver slot. I'm also a proud member of SEIU Virginia 512, and I serve on the board of directors. That's one of the reasons why I'm here today, in support of quality home care and good union jobs and fair wages for all home care workers. I also want to thank you all for the paid sick days and the hazard pay that we did receive, because many of us have worked throughout this pandemic every day to try to protect those we care for. And yes, we finally received $11.82 increase, but we still haven't received the back pay from that and from the time it was approved. And we need equal pay throughout Virginia, because there are some parts of Virginia, like Fairfax, where they make $15 or more an hour as home care workers. We also need more waiver slots, because I'm not sure how someone like my son, our son, who needs such a level of care that he doesn't have one yet. He's still like 3,000 on that list. And there are many home care workers that are forced to work multiple jobs just to make ends meet. We need better wages and benefits so that we can pay into our retirement, because of course this job doesn't come with retirement. And some of my fellow home care workers, when they retire, they are forced to live in poverty areas, or they're homeless, or they're forced to live with their children. So just like this endemic, and I'm saying endemic because prayerfully it will be an endemic, and we didn't discriminate, and it's a worldwide problem. So is poverty wages, so are lower wages in many states. And that's why I was encouraged to hear someone like New York Attorney General Letitia James speak on the view about home care workers and how we are heroes who are living in poverty while putting our lives on the line, and how she experienced the benefits of having a home care worker for her mom. So now she's willing to fight for us. But that's New York, and not the state that I was born and raised in, and sometimes feel unappreciated in. So I pray that each of you that have been put in a position to make a difference in the lives of those who can't do for themselves, those who have been just attacked by this pandemic, and those that do for them, will remember you have the power to make that change. And there is a shortage in home care workers because there's a shortage in fair pay. Thank you. And God bless each of you.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Next.
Our next speaker is Nancy Wine.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Ween, member of the Virginia Coalition for Human Rights, VCHR. I'm here today to request a budget amendment to fund a JLARC study into the rationale for the Commonwealth financing two separate agencies to manage foreign direct investments. The two agencies are the Virginia Economic Development Partnership and the Virginia Israel Advisory Board, or VIAB. In 2017, the General Assembly passed HB 2471 to empower the board of the VEDP as a supervisory board with the powers and duties of developing a strategic plan for economic development. This legislation was in response to a JLARC study that had found problems with the way the opportunity grants and loans were being tracked, managed, and coordinated. However, in 2018, the chair of the Virginia Israel Advisory Board objected to consolidation of control under VEDP. He said, quote, "Being independent helps us to function without any outside pressures. I submit," unquote, "I submit that this created a redundancy in the management of foreign direct investments and the opportunity for VIAB to remove itself from the accountability built into the VEDP model. VIAB claims to work closely with VEDP, but there's ample evidence that VIAB has free rein. How is it that a VIAB-sponsored project by Aquamoth, an Israeli company, was given the inside track to develop an aqua farm in Tazewell County when there is a domestic employee-owned aqua farm business, Blue Ridge Aquaculture, located in nearby Martinsville, Virginia? Another VIAB sponsored Israeli company, Cadence Energex, applied for and received a $1 million PPP loan from the CARES Act. Certainly, there were Virginia solar farm companies impacted by the COVID pandemic, that were worthy of receipt of these funds. BCHR requests that JLARC investigate the financing of two separate agencies to handle foreign direct investments within the Commonwealth. Further, we ask whether VIAB's activities are properly vetted for their compliance with VEDP's Strategic Economic Development Plan. Careful monitoring and enforcement are vital to ensure accountability and to prevent conflicts of interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Our next speaker is Lahara Brown.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lahara Brown. I live in Farmville, Virginia, and I am a member of the SEIU Virginia 512. I am married and a proud mother of 3 girls. I've been a home care worker for a little over a year now to my grandmother, Berlene. My Nana became my mom after my mother passed, and now Berlene is 91 years young. She loves Ranger. She loves doing crossword puzzles and loves her scratch-offs. She is definitely a prideful woman. A pistol is what I would call her. And has no problem standing up for herself, nor for the ones she loves. She always says if you mess with the ones she loves, she will walk through hell with kerosene draws on to protect them. She has always been a bold woman. Before home care, my Nana cared for her father in the 60s. She took care of him because he needed the help and because he was her father. Who else could care for him the way she did? The work was hard, but it was done out of love and the importance of dignity. I still don't know how she did it. As a widow, a mother of 4 small children, and the sole breadwinner, all while working a job that didn't pay well nor have benefits for her or her children's future. My grandmother was a caregiver, so when I realized she needed the help, it really broke my heart. The same woman who cooked and bathed for others now needs help with her cooking and bathing. I worried for her, which is why I now take care of her. My grandmother now calls me mom. I took a pay cut because I needed to be there for her as she sacrificed her own future for mine. I owe her everything. As I worked during the 2020 pandemic as an essential care worker, the low pay and lack of benefits made it hard, but how could I decide between my Nana, who became my mother, and a job? There has been some progress. I am thankful for the General Assembly. I am grateful for the pay raise, for expanding home care and adding sick days, opportunities my Nana never had. As a mom, I want to build a future for my girls as an essential home care worker. Today, I ask you to protect the progress for the people with disabilities, mental illnesses, old adults, and like my grandmother and care workers like myself. Let me remind you, Virginians need help, living wage, paid sick days, and quality home care for families, people with disabilities, and older adults. Now, my children want to go into care work. I don't want them to have to face the same challenges that their mother and grandmother had to fight for. So when you are in Richmond, protect the progress that has been made, even if you have to walk through hell with kerosene draws on. It is time to be bold like my Nana Berlene. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Tanya Milling.
Hi, thank you. I'm Tanya Milling, Executive Director of the ARC of Virginia. Thank you for your time. The developmental disability system needs rescuing. In its current form, the system is dysfunctional and ineffective. Did you know that nearly 1 in 4 of the DD waiver slots allocated by the General Assembly for fiscal year 21 go unused today due to a lack of providers and staffing, and 0 of the slots for fiscal year 22 have been given out to people with disabilities? Like all industries, the community of care is facing a devastating workforce crisis. But unlike all industries, Virginia's DD system was in a workforce crisis before the pandemic due to low provider rates that were outdated and designed to pay staff at only the 50th percentile wage, making it impossible for the DD system to compete in the labor market. Needs continue to rise while community capacity continues to drop. Providers are closing because they don't have staff. People with disabilities are losing their homes, being displaced without notice, and are subject to greater risk of harm because provider businesses can no longer afford to stay open. Last year, to address these crises, the General Assembly convened a work group of stakeholders to develop solutions. And this group met over the last year and has provided a full report to the General Assembly with 4 recommendations. The ARC of Virginia, in collaboration with Virginia Access, have worked in partnership to develop a DD system rescue proposal. This proposal expands on the waiver workgroup recommendations with a focus on equity and sustainability for our system. While this proposed package is for the upcoming biennium, it's really part of a larger strategy to transform our system from being reactive in nature, only serving people once they are in urgent need, to being a proactive system. And to do this, we need to first fund equitable, sustainable rates. Second, invest in innovation to build community capacity. Third, fully fund Priority 1. And fourth, once the system is stabilized, build core services for the remaining 10,000 people on the waiting list before they are in crisis and their needs become urgent Priority 1. The funding investment we are advocating for is significant. However, the cost of not funding the DD system rescue plan is much higher and more detrimental for Virginians with developmental disabilities and their families. Finally, we must remember that in 2011, the DOJ found Virginia in violation of the ADA due to its failure to provide services to people with developmental disabilities in the most integrated settings appropriate to their need. A decade later, Virginia remains out of compliance, under a settlement agreement, and still lacking a robust community-based system that can meet the needs of the over 14,000 Virginians on the wait list. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Daniel Kakaitis.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Daniel Kakaitis, and I work for Encircle, a nonprofit organization that provides various human services around the Commonwealth. We have been helping people since 1888. I am the regional manager for developmental services in the Richmond and Tidewater areas, and I have worked in the field for 40 years. I started as a direct care worker, and I now oversee our sponsored residential services in this part of the state. Sponsored residential is a Medicaid waiver service for adults with developmental disabilities. At Encircle, we call it family care and have more than 200 family care providers in Virginia. These providers serve the population we work with at the ground level. They provide immeasurable services: hygiene, feeding, oversight of medication and medical devices, budget support, transportation needs, life skills, and safety, to pull just a few from a list too long to recite here. During the pandemic, the General Assembly appropriated funds for a 12.5% increase in sponsored residential rates that will expire on June 30th of this year, and we are grateful for that. However, without additional action, family care providers will experience a pay cut just when the cost of living is going up. I ask that you support the increased funding of $294 million for services for people with developmental disabilities in Governor Northam's budget. This increase to the Medicaid DD waiver rates factors the current cost of providing these services, including a 12.8% increase for sponsored residential, allowing us to continue to pay these essential frontline service providers their current rates. In closing, I'd like to share the story of a person served by a wonderful family care provider in the Tidewater area. I'll call our person served Elle to protect her privacy. Elle came to our services in 2019. She was 36 years old and spent most, if not all, of those years in state facilities, bouncing from one group home to another. Elle required quite intensive care services. She struggled with voices in her head and extensive medical conditions. With our provider, she found kindness, unconditional care, and realized a fulfilled, inclusive, and complete life. Elle lavished in being pampered, having her nails and hair done, sipping coffee and embracing life out in the community. Sadly, Elle passed in October last year, and she will be forever missed by all of us. Family care providers, who are often strangers to those they serve, do just what their titles suggest. They provide care in the nature that families do for a loved one, unconditionally, with dignity, respect, and most importantly, love. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Glenna McVoy.
Glenna, you can begin speaking.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Members of the Virginia General Assembly, my name is Glenna McVoy, and I reside in Chesterfield County, Virginia. Today, I would like to request funding for the DD waiver waitlist and ask that you support the ARC of Virginia and Virginia Access Rescue Plan for the Department of Developmental Disability System. This rescue plan, will provide rate increases for DD waiver services for individuals with special needs, like those like my daughter. It will also provide funding for providers. It will open slots for individuals in the most urgent category and also provide essential services to those on the wait list. 11 years ago, my daughter received intake for the DD waiver wait list. At that time, she was deemed a priority one and has been a priority one recipient on the DD wait list every year since 2010. We have experienced every update and new iteration of the DD waiver waitlist system since 2010 to no avail. My daughter's symptoms have increased over the years. In 2011, I left the workforce to provide my daughter with better quality care at home. While my presence has provided my daughter better quality care and reduced her seizure activity, she still has developed more symptoms, and we now live below the poverty level in the state of Virginia. We struggle day to day to live a healthy lifestyle. We have experienced low-income housing issues, such as mold and mildew, that affect both her health and mine. It's a catch-22. If I work outside the home in my profession, my daughter loses quality care. If I stay home and provide quality care to my daughter, then we live below the poverty level in Virginia. With all that I'm tasked with daily, I should not have to live in poverty limbo for decades, while the state of Virginia limits funding and prioritizes my daughter's health and abilities in their system year after year. So I ask again that you fund the DD waiver wait list so that my daughter and other individuals like her can receive waiver slots, which will provide better and quality services for wait list recipients in the state of Virginia. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Gray Persons.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to provide input as you consider funding priorities going into the upcoming session of General Assembly. My name is Gray Persons. I'm a resident of Norfolk, and I work with self-advocates with developmental disabilities, and I work with the staff who support them. The self-advocates I work with have DD waivers, and the people who support them work for providers who are reimbursed for their work through the waivers. I'm asking you to fund increases in waiver rates to provide an equitable increase in wages for staff who support people in community settings. The wage model built into the rate models for support providers yield a below market wage. That below market wage has resulted in a DSP crisis since its inception several years ago. I know you've heard from the ARC of Virginia and other constituents for years. I've met with many of you in the past and have been there in the room. And I know that you care about this. And this crisis is now a catastrophe. The agency I work with is facing staffing shortages reaching 50% or more. The people I work with, several of them wanted to participate in this process today and were unable to because of the lack of support available to them. And it doesn't take a lot. You're doing this online. It takes a little bit of preparation with staff support in order to get your words together. Some of the longest and most tenured, talented people that have worked with our agency have burned out and left us, people in leadership positions. These are people we can't replace. The situation is deteriorating incredibly rapidly. Shortcomings in this wage methodology have been recognized by the secretary, who requested that you fund wages at above median levels at state hospitals to pay staff at the 75th percentile on the wage scale being used within the model. The state is responsible for staffing these hospitals. We are responsible for state staffing those hospitals, and 75th percentile is necessary to reach market wages. So it makes sense. This is critical, especially as the wages are built using historic data. That data is out of date in the market, driving really rapid increases in wages as we all compete for talent, and in some cases, just warm bodies. We are responsible for also staffing community supports, and community supports are part of the same system as state hospitals. I'm humbly asking you, desperately asking you, to please fund the increases outlined in the ARC of Virginia and Virginia Access's Rescue the DD System agenda. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you for your service, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Patricia Kuhn. You may speak.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Patricia Kuhn. I'm the Outreach and Recruitment Supervisor at Child Savers, working in 27 communities throughout Central Virginia in partnership with Child Care Aware. What we do is help families find childcare, help families understand what to ask providers when looking for childcare, and support childcare providers to offer high-quality programs, both childcare centers and home-based providers. Before working for Child Savers, I was a center director. I've been a director within religious exempt childcare programs and privately owned programs. My son is older now, but it feels like yesterday when he was young, and as a working parent, I needed to find childcare. So I understand as well the anxiety that parents feel in looking for and affording childcare. It's hard to believe that we're entering the third year of the COVID pandemic. This has been such a trying time for so many, for families with children and also for childcare providers. Many people have been fortunate to be able to work remotely, but like other essential workers, childcare is an on-site job. I have a few recommendations for consideration as the General Assembly gets underway for the new session. First, in December, Governor Northam announced an extension of HB 2206, which was enacted by the 2021 General Assembly to expand child care subsidy for families with children under age 5. Given the state of the Virginia economy, at the time, the bill was designed to help parents of young children go back to work by increasing eligibility for assistance to 85% of state median income. Governor Northam extended this law through May of 2022. Virginia's unemployment rate has declined since the spring of 2020, but there are still many mothers who are not working. To help parents return to the workforce, we urge that HB 2206 from the 2021 session be extended through calendar year 2022. This bill also only offered child care assistance for school-age children if they had younger siblings under age 5. Many parents of school-age children are still struggling to afford child care. We urge that the law be expanded to support families with both young children and school-age children. Also, with regard to child care subsidy receipt, we urge that Governor Northam's proposal to eliminate the 72-month family cap on child care subsidy eligibility be eliminated. Childcare is expensive. Low-wage families need help to afford it. An arbitrary time limit on childcare assistance undermines the ability of parents to work and the opportunity for children to be in a safe place that promotes their healthy development. And next, childcare workers are the workforce that supports all other workforces. While childcare work is work support, it's the job of childcare workers to promote the healthy development of children. Yet for this on-site important work, childcare workers earn about $11.30 per hour. Efforts have been made during the pandemic to provide bonuses, but what is really needed is a wage supplement strategy to increase the pay for childcare workers.
Speaking time has elapsed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is David Smith.
Good morning, delegates and senators. My name is David Smith. I live in Richmond, Virginia,
and I'm on the board of directors for Interfaith Action for Human Rights, IAHR, a multi-faith organization working to end human rights abuses in the Mid-Atlantic. The chair of the Virginia Coalition on Solitary Confinement, a broad-based coalition of organizations impacted individuals and allies from around Virginia working to end extended solitary confinement, and a survivor of 16 and a half months in solitary confinement in the Norfolk City Jail. I'm here to speak to a bill that Senators Morrissey and Vogel are introducing to end extended solitary confinement in Virginia's prisons. Medical professionals recognize that 15 days or more of confinement in a cell by themselves or another person with minimal out-of-cell time causes lasting physical, emotional, and mental damage. In fact, the UN has called keeping someone in this type of isolated confinement for 15 or more days torture. In Virginia, we have no limit to the amount of days that we keep someone in isolation in our prisons. The annual 2021 Virginia Department of Corrections report on solitary confinement showed our prisons sent a person to solitary confinement for 15 days or more 3,672 times. 3,672 times our state-sanctioned torture. The Virginia Coalition on Solitary Confinement has worked closely with the DOC, the Senate Finance and Appropriations staff, and the Department of Planning and Budget to craft legislation that will end extended solitary confinement, create safer prisons, and minimize the initial fiscal impact to Virginia. I say initial because every other state that has ended extended solitary confinement has seen a cost savings in their budgets. This bill to end torture will come with a budget amendment. We expect it to be several $million. I am asking you to support this budget amendment because we believe it is worth spending Virginia taxpayer money to end torture in our prisons. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Sakina Jackson.
Good morning to the co-chairs and committee members of this appropriations hearing. I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Sakina Jackson, and I'm the Deputy Director of Child Care Aware of Virginia. We are a statewide nonprofit network that supports both families to find child care and child care providers offer high quality care. I've worked in child care for 20 years at the direct level with at a child care center, at the local DSS office in Hanover County, and previously with the Virginia Department of Social Services in their Division of Child Care and Early Childhood Education. Supporting children, families with children, and strengthening the quality of care is my passion. Based on this experience, I'd like to ask that the committee acknowledge that while the economy in Virginia is improving, there are families that are still struggling with the pandemic having lasted much longer than anyone predicted. Most recent Census Bureau data shows from December shows that in Virginia, there are over 250,000 families with children who lost income in the past 4 weeks. And these families continue to struggle as even the statewide unemployment rate is improving. I've got lots of stats here, but I don't want to take all my time giving you those. I will submit these comments in writing as well as our policy agenda. But as the new General Assembly session begins, Child Care Aware Virginia would like to urge you to support an extension through calendar year 2022 of last year's House Bill 2206, with that legislation expanding income eligibility for child care subsidy. The bill was designed to support families with children under the age of 5 and their older siblings, if they had them. We urge you to broaden the measure to also offer child care assistance to families of school-age children. Before and after care is also important to working families or parents who want to return to the workforce. Next, it's time to invest in the child care workforce. On average, child care workers earn $11.30 per hour. Virginia has received over $1 billion in supplemental federal funds for childcare. Please consider using some of that funding to develop a wage ladder and wage supplement system to boost compensation for the childcare workforce. I know there have been bonuses and there are programs out there for providers, but I think we need a more robust system to have sustainable childcare and sustain a workforce at a living wage. Childcare workers should definitely be compensated at a higher rate than, unfortunately, parent fees can support for individual providers. Their work is important and is a public good. With supplemental funding.
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is expired.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll submit any additional comments in writing. Have a great day.
Excellent.
The next speaker is Adele Roof.
Good morning. My name is Adele Roof from Charlottesville, and I'm a member of the Virginia Coalition for Human Rights. I respectfully request a budget amendment to fund a JLARC study to determine if the Virginia Israel Advisory Board, known as VIAB, qualifies to remain as an advisory board, and these are my reasons. Unlike other advisory boards, VIAB is not set up to represent Virginia citizens. Please check out the VIAB website. It states, and I quote, "The Virginia Israel Advisory Board is a government agency that helps Israeli companies build and grow their U.S. operations in Virginia." An agency that helps Israeli companies grow their U.S. operations in Virginia sounds like a chamber of commerce to me, a chamber of commerce for a foreign state, not an advisory board for Virginia constituents. The Latino Advisory Board serves the interests of the Latino American community of Virginia. The Asian Advisory Board serves the interests of the Asian American community of Virginia. The African American Advisory Board serves the interests of the African American community of Virginia. The Virginia Israel Advisory Board serves the interests of Israeli businesses. As such, VIAB's priority is with the economic advancement of a particular foreign nation. Any group wanting to bring in foreign development, whether from Israel, Canada, France, or wherever, should not be called an advisory board under the current definition. A Chamber of Commerce for Israel should have close oversight to make sure that its interests do not conflict with the interests of homegrown businesses, the Virginia environment, and any other pertinent issues affecting Virginia homeowners and citizens. I applaud Israel's entrepreneurial spirit to want to expand into Virginia markets, but VIAB cannot advocate for Israeli interests while continuing as an agency funded by Virginia taxpayers, housed in the Pocahontas building, and with access that homegrown Virginia businesses do not necessarily have. If this is not, at the very least, the appearance of impropriety, I don't know what is. Thank you very much.
Next.
The next speaker is Anna Kilius.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Anna Kilius, speaking on behalf of the James River Association to highlight the historic nature of the natural resources funding included in the governor's budget proposal. This budget includes, for the first time ever, full funding for the Virginia Agricultural Cost Share Program, and that is a long-time bipartisan goal for the Commonwealth. It includes much needed dollars to address the overflows from Virginia's combined sewer systems, which hurt our outdoor recreation industry and keep families from enjoying our rivers. There's funding for stormwater projects, for land conservation, including tribal land conservation, farmland preservation, and the preservation of sites associated with Black, Indigenous, and people of color. There's funding for trails, for urban forestry, for better wastewater and drinking water treatment, particularly in our disadvantaged communities. There's even funding to bring back American shad to the James River. And shad are an historic species that have supported many communities that have called this watershed home, and they're on the brink of collapse in our founding river. So with this budget, the next 2 years will be transformative, not just for the Chesapeake Bay and tributaries like the James River, but for the health of our communities and our local economies, which support Virginia's thriving forests, our farmland, our tourism, and our outdoor recreation industries. So we really urge you to kind of make sure that this funding crosses the finish line and delivers cleaner water, cleaner air, and healthier landscapes for all Virginians. Thank you for your time and best wishes in the coming legislative session.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Catherine Ray. Apologies. The next speaker is Alfred Fields.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, I'm Alfred Fields. I'm from the Mill House. I'm a brain injury survivor. A little over 3 years ago, I was found unconscious on the living room floor after reaching. Sorry. After reaching the peak of an aggressive viral infection. It wasn't until I had appointments with my speech therapist that I became aware that I was a brain injury survivor. At the Mill House, I participate in 2 units, the kitchen unit and the communication unit. In the kitchen unit, I assist the team with lunch preparation and kitchen cleanup tasks. In the communications unit, I perform business tasks such as reception, member time entry, and other data entry tasks, and overall running of the Mill House. I've also become a member of the QA committee for the International Brain Injury Clubhouse Alliance. Through the Mill House, I've become more social in and out of the clubhouse, reaching personal goals and getting a new job at Staples. I really enjoy the time I spend at the Mill House activities with the Community Brain Injury Services, Brain Injury Association of Virginia, and IBICA. Delegates, we are asking for funding for a housing assistance position to help our population find safe housing. We are not under medical waivers and have a harder time finding a place to live than most others in need. This community is also looking for services to be expanded to reach areas of the state that lack access to aid, both physically and mentally. We could all benefit from having greater accessibility to people and services that could help improve our quality of life. I'd also like to note that I think I'm on your list twice. I believe I'm also number 32, maybe. So if you see my name again, it's not me. So I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for having us today. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Catherine Ray.
Hi, good morning. My name is Catherine Ray, and I'm a resident of Chesterfield County. I am here to give voice to the DD System Rescue Plan and the need to be proactive in relieving the workforce crisis that affects children receiving waiver services. House and Senate patrons will be introducing language in the upcoming session that would enable parents like myself to be paid attendance for their children under the age of 18, and I ask that you support this bipartisan effort. I am the mother to 2 young boys, JP here, and Louie, both of whom have a rare genetic syndrome called ATRX. They are physically and intellectually disabled. At 6 and 9 years old, they are dependent in ways beyond their typical school-aged peers. In fact, they are dependent in all of their activities for daily living. And I am not a typical parent like many of my own peers. I am a caregiver. And up until the COVID pandemic and the Appendix K flexibilities, my boy's Medicaid waiver allowed me to hire attendants, but not be a paid one myself. Attendant care is a great resource on paper, but has often been inaccessible to us due to the challenges in retaining competent, reliable care, able to accept the unproportional $11.81 an hour pay rate, which comes in just 81 cents above the new minimum wage. It is hard enough to secure one attendant, let alone 2. I am often hiring someone to work with one boy while I am still one-on-one with the other. I am both employer and coworker, though. Historically, I've been paid for neither labor, and I've never been able to secure the consistent care necessary to work outside of the home. Instead, I've spent nearly a decade as my boy's primary caregiver at the expense of building a career and financial stability. The reality, though, too, is that I'm an expert in my children and their needs, and best positioned and most passionate about caring for them. I intimately understand their nonverbal communication, how to transport their non-ambulatory bodies and support their incontinence needs, how to change out their G-tubes and manage their medical supplies, facilitate their therapies, and so on. My continuity of care and interdisciplinary knowledge is what best enables JP and Louie to thrive here in our community. The alternative is institutionalization, an antiquated model that is more expensive for the state and damaging to families. Institutional costs of care will only compound over time too, as my boys age and grow into more complicated needs. It is both good policy and fiscally responsible to be proactive in paying parents from the start through the pre-existing Medicaid-funded waivers and attendant hours that they already qualify for. The Appendix K flexibility during the pandemic has been a game changer for my family and feels like a sustainable way forward. We need to make this allowance permanent. Paying parents cannot be the sole solution, but it should at least be one of the many resources available. Families need stable resources, a range of options. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Eric Mann.
Good morning, delegates. My name is Eric Mann, and I'm a brain injury survivor. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the brain injury community. My brain injury occurred in June 2019 in the emergency room after I had an accident on my mountain bike. My wife and I were on a camping trip with friends when I crashed my bike into a rocky, dry creek bed. I don't remember the accident itself, but I do remember being in a great deal of pain afterwards. As it turns out, I had fractured vertebrae, multiple broken ribs, and a collapsed lung. Learn the basics of life: eating, drinking, communicating, walking, and many other activities of daily living. My injuries from the bike accident have basically healed. However, as a result of the brain injury, I was not able to return to my job as a manager of risk analytics with Dominion Energy. I also have physical impairment from the brain injury that continues to be a challenge. I continue to have treatment to address these issues. Currently, I attend the Mill House, a clubhouse for survivors of brain injury, on Tuesdays, and I virtually attend 4 days a week. Attending the Mill House connects me socially and gives me meaningful work to do. It has given me a chance to continue living my life and to participate and contribute to the community and society. My brain injury community is asking for funding for a housing assistance position to help population finding safe housing. Brain injury survivors are not under medical waivers, and I have a harder time finding a place to live than most others in need. This community is also looking for services to expand to reach areas of the state that lack access.
Mr. Mann, are you still there?
Contribute to a better quality for life for all individuals affecting brain injury. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
The next speaker is Mackenzie Crane.
Hi, I was here to help my members from the Mill House sign up, so I can yield my time.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Troy Robb. Troy, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. I'm honored to speak with you today, and I want to thank you for all the hard work that you do day in and day out. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Troy Robb. I'm the Chief Executive Officer with Dominion Care. I've been with Dominion for over 3 years. Dominion Care was established in 1999 with a staff of 4 and has grown to more than 475 plus dedicated full-time and part-time employees who provide supports to more than 3,000 persons across the Commonwealth of Virginia. We offer a complete spectrum of services for a high-need population, including developmental, academic, and behavioral services across the lifespan. Services include in-clinic and home-based counseling for those at risk or suffering from mental illness, psychiatric medication management, life skills training, community coaching, ABA and other autism-related services, residential and day programs for those with intellectual and developmental challenges, education services, including private day schools and independent living services for young adults. Before coming to Dominion, I retired after 25 years of working with the nation's largest provider of our kind, personally being involved in service delivery in 29 different states. I've dedicated my entire working life to delivering high quality services to this very vulnerable population. Unfortunately, the vulnerability was made even greater by this global pandemic. Virginia's community mental health and disability waiver system is in crisis. Most of the attention has been placed on the state psych hospitals and their staffing shortages. However, the real silent crisis is in the community. It is hard to unpack all the reasons for the crisis, but as you have heard time and again, COVID made a bad situation worse. We seem to take one step forward and two steps back. Some of the agency responses during COVID were extremely helpful. The telehealth flexibilities were good. However, Medicaid waiver providers were not allowed to offer face-to-face services for many months. Providers do not get paid when they do not bill for services. Then the General Assembly authorized retainer payments for day support providers, for which we are so grateful. However, the administrative burden and hassle were so great that we ended up with pennies on the dollar, which I don't think really was the intent of the General Assembly. As you know, the minimum wage increased to $11 an hour on January 1st. And as Medicaid providers, we cannot charge more to cover our expenses. The state sets Medicaid rates. The increase in the minimum wage was created a wage compression issue in addition to an already existing labor shortage. And if we can't solve this problem, the providers will be forced to shut down services or shut down completely. Thank you for your support of Medicaid and waiver providers during the last summer special session. You increased rates by 12.5% through June 30th. And we immediately pass that increase on to our direct support professionals. The General Assembly must continue to fund the one-time increases to home and community-based providers. We also ask you to support the governor's targeted DD waiver services increases.
Thank you, sir. Your time has expired.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Elizabeth Parker.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Elizabeth Parker with Two Capitals Consulting, speaking today on behalf of St. Joseph's Villa. St. Joseph's Villa is a nonprofit community-based mental health services provider located in Henrico County, offering comprehensive supports for children, adults, and families regardless of circumstance. Specifically, the Villa is home to a crisis stabilization unit, mobile crisis stabilization, intensive in-home services, outpatient counseling, mental health skill building, and intensive care coordination. Today, I'd like to echo the concerns of some of the Villa's sister organizations in the mental health services arena, particularly those of the previous speaker. As you craft your budget for this biennium, I ask you to keep in mind our community-based providers in two ways. First, please support the governor's inclusion of an additional $675 million for mental health services. This will increase the number of folks eligible for Medicaid waiver services, including 1,200 new waiver slots in community living and family and individual supports. It will also provide a much-needed revision to our rates. Second, home and community-based services received a 12.5% rate increase beginning July 1, 2021, thanks to your action during the special session. Unfortunately, this increase expires at the end of this fiscal year. We respectfully request this increase is made permanent so organizations like the Villa can continue providing the best services to our most vulnerable Virginians. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Kate Ope.
Good morning, members of the Finance and Appropriations Committee. My name is Kate Opa, and I'm a resident of Chesterfield County. I'm here today to ask for your support of the DD System Rescue Plan and the need to be proactive in relieving the workforce crisis that affects children receiving waiver services. House and Senate patrons will be introducing language in the upcoming session that would enable parents like myself to be paid attendance for their children under the age of 18. My son Hatch has Down syndrome, autism, and a speech-language impairment. Hatch has significant behaviors that not only endanger his life, but the lives of the people that love and care for him the most. Hatch has been receiving waiver services since he was 3 weeks old, and after being on Virginia's Medicaid waiver waitlist for 11 years, Hatch was awarded the community living waiver. As an infant and toddler, we rarely had trouble finding personal attendant and respite care providers until his violent behaviors began to manifest around the age of 4. These behaviors include punching, kicking, biting, pulling hair out, fracturing the eye socket of a 1-to-1, breaking doors, windows, electronics, and punching holes in just about every wall in our house. We have utilized every resource available to find a personal attendant for Hatch, but let's be real. At $11.81 an hour, would you sign up to be Hatch's personal attendant? We wouldn't dare leave him alone with anyone, knowing that his personal attendant would likely be physically assaulted. We only wanted a third set of eyes so we could work. Between September 2019 and March 2020, Hatch had to be picked up from school 83 times because of his behavior. I'm not sure how much sick and personal time you get, but as a special education transition support specialist in Chesterfield County, I had burned through my leave by mid-January. We decided as a family that I would resign from my job after 17 years in public education and take advantage of the flexibility that Appendix K was offering, as our only other option would be to place Hatch in a group home. Per DBHDS's website, the average pay rate for a Tier 2 group home is $187 a day. That is $68,255 per year. The annual cost to allow me to be his personal attendant, $24,564. Utilizing Appendix K, I make just over a third of what Virginia would pay a group home. Frankly, it makes no sense to me why Virginia would rather pay for Hatch to be in a group home away from his family, costing exponentially more than it would if I would receive if he were to stay with his family. This doesn't seem morally, ethically, or fiscally responsible. Professionally, I am overqualified to be his personal attendant with 17 years in education, 10 of which special education, certified in adaptive curriculum, trained in ABA crisis and de-escalation. Personally, I am his mother, and I am an expert in all things related to Hatch. I know that there will come a time when I can no longer care for him. Until that day, the Commonwealth of Virginia can save a tremendous amount of money by allowing me to be his personal attendant. Your support of this bipartisan effort will help so many Virginian families just like mine. I am genuinely grateful for the opportunity that you have provided me to share a part of my story.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Tim Horton.
Hello and good morning. My name is Tim Horton, and I'm a recovering survivor of a traumatic brain injury. On July 25th of 2014, I suffered a carotid artery dissection resulting in a massive stroke. After 2 months in a hospital and rehab facility, I learned to walk again. Upon discharge, I was in a wheelchair, but I was determined that I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair. So I pushed myself, and eventually I was able to develop enough confidence in my balance to put the wheelchair away, and I haven't looked back. I remember one of the first feelings I got once I got home from the hospital was fear. TBIs wreak havoc on your psyche, on your confidence, and on your mental state. Anxiety and depression are other side effects of TBIs. I'm a member of the Mill House, which has helped me to overcome a lot of these feelings and helped me feel like I have a purpose in life. The Mill House has allowed me to meet others who are experiencing similar feelings. It provides us with a safe, secure environment where we can gather to share our recovery experiences, learn about resources, discuss coping strategies, and develop friendships. At the same time, it provides us with experiences that will help us return to a life where we can be more independent. But in order for this service to continue to help so many brain injury survivors, we need to have your support. That is why I'm asking that you support the expansion of the community brain injury case management and creation of housing specialist positions to address the needs of over 302,000 Virginians with brain injuries. Without this funding, our traumatic brain injury community would not be where we are today. We truly appreciate your support and thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Melissa Johnson.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. My name is Melissa Johnson and I live in Lynchburg. First, let me say thank you to all of you for your hard work for our Commonwealth. My reason for speaking with you today concerns funding for investing in our natural resources. I urge, encourage, beg, plead for you to fully fund items for clean water and the Department of Forestry. Specifically, the amounts are $286 million for Virginia Agricultural Cost Share, $100 million for stormwater local assistance funds, $165 million to stop sewage overflows into the James and Potomac rivers, $69 million to continue upgrading sewage treatment plants, and $14 million for over 2 years for the Department of Forestry to help localities protect and enhance tree canopies. Our environment is critical to our health, our future, and to the economy of Virginia. Thank you for considering this.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Jason Cox. Mr. Cox, are you there?
My apologies. Good morning, everyone. Budget amendment. So I'm here on behalf of Sarah Virginia, which is the Substance Abuse and Addiction Recovery Alliance. That's the smoke detector. My apologies. So I'm here to advocate for the budget amendment funding peer and family support partner Medicaid reimbursement. I myself am a person in long-term recovery and have seen firsthand the effects or the effectiveness of peer support and family support. It's one of the leading intervention routes, and it's continuing to show its effectiveness more and more in our community. I myself am a peer support specialist, and you know, the folks that provide these services go 1,000%. I can say that speaking for my colleagues and myself, we truly do care about what it is that we do. And the CSBs around the state are not able to pay for or get reimbursement for these services properly. The current rate at less than $30 an hour, no CSB can afford to bill for those services due to the reimbursement rates. And another talking point that really stood out to me was for every $1 million the General Assembly invests in peer and family support, Virginians will receive $2 million with federal match for people and families who are willing to receive peer and family support. These people are dying at a rapid rate as a result of the epidemic that's going on in our community. And, you know, it may not be something everybody sees on a daily basis, but I do know that the hands of this illness, substance use disorder, reaches far and wide in our community. And it's just continuing to riddle our community with deaths of loved ones, sons, mothers, fathers, and these services, taking a stand on these services and investing in these services is like dropping a rock in the pond, and we get to see the ripple effects reach out to the rest of the community. I heard something early on here about catalytic converters, and I don't know if that has to do with the theft of them, but I know that I've seen folks in active addiction do things like that to continue feeding this disorder. And so please consider let me read it so that I don't mess it up. Please consider the vote for the budget amendment funding peer and family support partner Medicaid reimbursement. It is essential, and people are continuing to die as a result of lack of services. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Suzanne Tarr.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here this morning, and in the famous words of Monty Python, and now for something completely different. I am here to represent the Virginia Probation and Parole Association, and our primary concern is the budget proposal by Governor Northam that totally leaves probation and parole officers out of the pay raises for probation and parole officers in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We are suffering the same problems and plight as our sister and brother officers on the law enforcement spectrum, but we are not being recognized. 2 points I want to make real quick. Every probationer on the street saves the Commonwealth $66,000 a year, and that's on the low end of somebody incarcerated. So if one officer is supervising 120 people, that's $66,000 for every probationer they're successfully supervising. Virginia is known for its free entry services. We are nationally known. We are the lowest or the second lowest recidivism in the country for the past 5 years. So if we say that this is how we do business, we need to acknowledge that the officers that are doing the things that keep probationers on the street need to be recognized, and we need to prove that by rewarding them with salary raises. One more thing, in 2018, the mean annual wage for probation officers in the United States was $58,000. That's in 2018. In 2021, Virginia probation and parole officers start out at $39,628. So we are not paying a living wage for people that have college educations, and most of them have master's degrees. We're losing officers because we're not paying them enough. We're losing officers to private sector jobs. We're losing officers to community agencies that pay more for the same skills. I would really seriously encourage you to look at the retention issues present in the ranks of community corrections professionals statewide and act accordingly. There are very few probation and parole officers in Virginia who are able to get by and support their families on just one job. Many work 2 and 3 jobs to pay their bills and support their families. So we are in need of some consideration in this budget. We have been left behind many, many years, and this is another instance of somebody else getting rewarded for stuff that we're doing. So, and I'm not certainly not dissing the institutional staff, but we need to be included in the pay raises. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your service, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Molly Gill.
Hello, members of the committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Molly Gill. I'm the Vice President of Policy for FAM. We're a nonpartisan organization located in Washington, D.C., and have been advocating sentencing and prison reforms in Virginia for several years now. I'd like to urge this committee today and the legislature to enact independent prison oversight in the state and to make sure that that is fully funded. An independent prison ombudsman's office was considered in the last legislative session and legislation proposed by Delegate Patrick Hope. That office essentially would establish an independent prison ombudsman who is not located in the Department of Corrections, but can have power to investigate complaints that are systematic, that are coming from incarcerated people, from staff, and also has the power to inspect prison facilities, write reports, increase transparency, submit those reports to the public and to legislative committees like yours to inform lawmakers of problems in the facilities, budget needs, other important problems that need to be addressed before they worsen. Many other states have independent prison oversight, And the key to making independent prison oversight work is to fully fund it. This funding question came up in front of the committees last year, and there was some debate about it. So the state ordered Department of Public Safety to conduct a study. What that study concluded, it presented several funding options, but the main one that it presented was that to have oversight similar to that being operated in other states, it would require an annual appropriation of $3.4 million. And I would argue that that is a reasonable number based on the ombudsmans that we have spoken to around the country and other offices we've seen in action. Independent oversight is not free, but I would also ask you to seriously consider including this funding because, frankly, Virginia can't afford not to have oversight. Unfortunately, the Virginia Department of Corrections is, I'm sure, doing its best, but nonetheless engaged in ongoing, very costly lawsuits for taxpayers involving everything from people inside being mauled by dogs to people dying deaths that were preventable to the use of solitary confinement. And in even the last 3 years, there have been several, extremely expensive settlements of lawsuits that the Department of Corrections has entered into. So prison ombudsman's office is the classic example of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and I think also worth the appropriations that this committee would consider. And I would also say that independent prison oversight can act as reconnaissance for these committees. You will have more information coming to you, more up-to-date, accurate, timely information about the true state of affairs in the Department of Corrections, whether repairs have been made, how money is being used, what the staffing situation truly is.
Thank you, ma'am.
And that can only be beneficial to you as you're deciding your budget. Thank you.
Thank you. And with the permission of my friend Delegate McQuinn, I'm going to turn over the chairmanship to Delegate McQuinn for the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and staff. We may move forward. Thank you.
The next speaker is Roy Greer.
Good morning, Mr. Greer.
Good morning, Delegate McQuinn. My name is Roy Greer. I live in Chesterfield County. I'm the grandfather of two disabled boys, JP and Louie. They have a diagnosis called ATRX, which leaves them totally dependent on others for their most basic needs. My daughter is Catherine Ray, who you heard from a little while ago, and she calls on me and her mother, my wife, to be attendants because it is extremely difficult for her to find anyone who is willing and qualified to work at the current Medicare waiver reimbursement rates. During the 2021 school year, I spent every day at Catherine's house helping her with JP and Louie so they could virtually access their education at Bon Air Elementary School. It was a labor of love for me and a very special experience, but had I not recently retired and been physically capable, Catherine would have been left to juggle it all alone. I came on to help when she was unable to secure an outside attendant or two. Just as we've learned to be the boys' caregivers over the years, Catherine and I stepped up to be their instructional assistants. Every day for 9 months, from Labor Day to mid-June, starting at 7:45 a.m. and ending around 2 p.m., one of us had JP, the other had Louie. The boys cannot functionally or cognitively use a Chromebook, so we would help them to actively participate with their teachers and classmates by bringing the content off screen, working with whatever materials we had on hand. We fed them at lunchtime. We took them on walks at recess for fresh air. I got a lot of exercise. We attended to their personal needs. We read to them. We helped them hand over hand with STEAM and art projects. We tuned into the music lessons, and we moved them around during PE. There's no way Catherine could have managed two boys on two separate Chromebooks and schedules by herself last year. And there's no way she could sustain caring for them both long-term when their care requires one-on-one support. Even though school was back in person this year, the need continues after school, on weekends, and during seasonal breaks. Catherine and her husband, Mike, will require help with JP and Louie for the rest of their lives. And my wife and I will not always be around to step in. The current Medicare waiver rate is $11.81, 81 cents over more than minimum wage. Catherine works at a local soap shop, retail, making $15 an hour, squeezing those hours in while her boys are in school and on the weekends or when her husband is home to take the lead with the boys. There's an obvious discrepancy of tasks between a retail job and caring for the intimate needs of someone who is disabled, and the compensation needs to reflect that difference. I urge you to increase the Medicare waiver reimbursement rate to a level that will attract qualified, caring people that our family can call upon to help care for our sweet boys, JP and Louie, and other Virginians like them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Staff.
Our next speaker is Ann McDonald.
Good morning, Ms. McDonald.
Good morning. Good morning, Ms. Chairwoman, and members of the committees. My name is Ann McDonald. I'm the Executive Director of the Brain Injury Association of Virginia. This year, we're requesting $570,000 to expand specialized community-based brain injury case management services. This funding would facilitate the hiring of 2 pediatric case managers and 4 adult case managers to serve Virginians with moderate to severe brain injury in unserved areas. If appropriated, these funds would be used to provide services to 100 children and families in the Shenandoah Valley and Southampton Roads who need an important source of support, as well as 200 adult case managers in Rappahannock County and the Middle Peninsula and Northern Neck regions of the state. We're also seeking a little over $1 million to create housing specialist positions at each state-funded community-based brain injury program. Despite facing the same needs as those with intellectual and developmental disabilities, people with brain injury in Virginia have little to no residential service options available to them due to a lack of inventory and support funding. The shortage in housing and service options for individuals with brain injuries is reaching crisis proportions. Nearly half of the people who called the Brain Injury Association of Virginia last year told us housing was one of their top 3 needs. And we've seen a 60% increase in the number of calls we receive for housing-related assistance in the last 2 years. Housing is known to be one of the primary social determinants of health, and affordable, accessible, and appropriate housing can be life-saving. Those we serve should have their needs discussed as part of housing-related conversations, and we should be able to work with our clients to obtain the necessary housing skills and supports to maintain them safely and stably in the community. Each year, 28,000 Virginians sustain a brain injury, and 7,000 are admitted to hospitals because of that injury. More than 300,000 are disabled by traumatic brain injury or stroke. Current funding for community-based brain injury supports and services is $6.4 million, or $6 per person, barely enough to buy each of them a slice of pizza and a soda once a year. In 2021, 9 community-based organizations provided supports for 3,263 of them, 1%. Please fund our initiatives. I thank you for your previous appropriations and hope you remember us in your deliberations this year. Thank you for your attention and your service to the Commonwealth and her citizens.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Staff.
Our next speaker is Nathan Mitchell.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, my name is Nathan Mitchell, and I'm a person in sustained recovery from a substance use disorder. I'm also Outreach Director for the McShin Recovery Resource Foundation, host of McShin's award-winning recovery podcast, Getting the Herd. You should check it out. And I'm also a very proud member of the grassroots state organizing team for the Virginia Recovery Advocacy Project. Thank you again for this opportunity to share my concerns. I'm a resident of Richmond, Virginia, an active member of my community, and a proud voter once again after losing my civil rights as a direct result of a felony conviction for my substance use disorder. Recovery today gives me the freedom to live and walk in my purpose each day to bring a message of hope and support anyone seeking recovery from a substance use disorder. Recovery is an ongoing one-day-at-a-time process for me, and I'm grateful for the authentic, peer-led, community-based organizations that first introduced me to recovery through a jail program that nurtured my early recovery in support of recovery housing. The pandemic has demonstrated the value of these authentic peer-led community-based solutions in combating the addiction epidemic. And while we applaud the General Assembly and the executive branch for tremendous progress recently recognizing the value of these recovery solutions, we can and must do more. I'm here today to support funding critical recovery support services. First, too few Virginians have access to on-demand standards-based recovery support services, especially those provided by certified peer recovery specialists, whose services have been shown to be the most effective and cost-efficient means to help people begin and maintain a path to recovery from a substance use disorder. We ask that the budget fully fund STEP Virginia to help fix Virginia's fractured mental health and substance use treatment system. One crucial aspect of that is same-day access to services. Sadly, most community service boards take that same-day access to mean same-day assessment, where actual receipt of services may be delayed up to 3 weeks. Same-day access must mean just that. We are seeking sponsors to an amendment that incorporates this requirement. We know that the dropout rate between assessment and delivery of services can be as high as up to 25%, and each day that services are withheld, lives are lost. Next, we ask that you support a budget amendment increasing funding for peer and family support partner Medicaid reimbursements. Research demonstrates that receiving peer supports is a leading intervention which enables overcoming addiction and mental health challenges. Current reimbursement rates under $30 per hour creates problematic recruitment and retention issues for qualified individuals to meet these critical needs. For every $1 million the General Assembly invests in peer and family support, Virginians do receive $2 million with the federal match for individuals and families who are willing to receive peer and family support. Forgive me for speaking fast, but we have a lot of things to go over here. Next, we support existing funding in the proposed budget for the Virginia Association of Recovery Residences. We know that stable, safe, and effective housing is a vital aspect for maintaining post-treatment long-term recovery. These community-based recovery support housing is a cost-effective means of maintaining recovery compared to the expense of more treatment, more hospitals, or jails and prisons. Further, in 2020, the General Assembly passed HB 928, which permits the Chesterfield County School Board to establish a recovery high school for the purpose of providing academic, emotional, and social support necessary to make progress towards earning a high school diploma.
Thank you, sir. Your time has expired.
We ask the General Assembly to support that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, and thank you for your advocacy. Next speaker, staff.
The next speaker is Patrick Calvert.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the...
Good morning, Mr. Calvert.
The ever critical money committees. You hear me?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Right.
We can hear you.
Right. I'm Pat Calvert. I'm speaking on behalf of Virginia Conservation Network. We're the network of more than 150 conservation organizations from across the Commonwealth. I want to take just a couple minutes of your time to emphasize that natural resources funding included in Governor Northam's proposed budget. As you know, this budget includes full funding for Virginia Agricultural Cost Share Program. That's never happened before. But it's a long time bipartisan goal for the Commonwealth. It's also funding for stormwater improvement projects so that localities are enabled to prevent polluted runoff and to address localized flooding. And then decades-long routine spillage of sewage into the James and Potomac rivers will be reduced through the proposed budget through your support. Furthermore, there's critical funding for land conservation, tribal land conservation, farmland preservation, and the preservation of sites associated with Black, Indigenous, and communities of color. There's funding for trails, urban forestry, improved wastewater and drinking water treatment, particularly in historically disadvantaged communities. So with this budget, 2 years will be not only supportive of Virginia's creeks, rivers, farms, forests, wildlife, and the Bay, but for the health of our communities and our local economies, which benefit Virginia tourism and outdoor rec industries and the jobs that those economies support. Across the Commonwealth and across the aisle, Virginians value our natural resources, and as such, we encourage you to recognize that value by retaining this funding and delivering clean water, clean air, healthy landscapes to all Virginians. I appreciate your time and look forward to working with you in the upcoming legislative session.
Thank you, Mr. Calvert. Next speaker, staff.
The next speaker is Brantley Tyndall.
Good morning, Ms. Chairwoman, committee members.
Good morning to you.
I'm representing Virginia Bicycling Federation, one of Virginia's statewide bicycling advocacy organizations, and Sports Backers, Central Virginia's leading active living nonprofit, both founded in the early 1990s. Our member organizations from communities across the Commonwealth are thrilled by the investment in multi-use trails in the proposed budget. Virginia has always shown leadership for bicycling, ranked number 9 in the nation based on metrics like ridership and supportive laws for safe bicycling. This has come into sharp focus since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. The need for this investment is evident in the numbers, with Virginia State Parks attendance increasing over 13%, up to 8 million people in 2020, increases in bike sales upwards of 120%, and growth of trail use on our existing trails like the Virginia Capitol Trail, in some areas reaching up to 300%. Virginians have shown they want and need more options to recreate and choose active transportation. Investments in trail infrastructure across Virginia will bring job and economic development, significantly promote healthy and safe tourism, connect communities, and especially in rural areas desperate for this boost in job growth. A University of Massachusetts comprehensive study found multi-use trails provide 9.6 local jobs per $1 million spent, approximately 20% more than traditional road projects. And other studies have found double that number. Outdoor recreation employs more than 190,000 Virginians, contributes over $20 billion to our economy, and generates $1.2 billion in state and local tax revenues, with much of that revenue coming from out of state. These trails also provide safe places to ride a bike. In 2020, Virginia saw a decrease in bicyclist fatalities, coinciding with a notable increase in bicycling. Unfortunately, with the return of pre-pandemic driving levels in 2021, bicyclist fatalities have doubled since last year. Local and regional government from Southwest Virginia to the Eastern Shore are working energetically to plan, fund, and build these trails to benefit residents and visitors alike, because they know that trails consistently earn a solid return on investment. The Fall Line in particular, which touches 7 localities from Ashland to Petersburg, has received unprecedented support from the localities comprising the Central Virginia Transportation Authority. We look forward to your support of their efforts to fully fund and complete these multi-use trails, including the Shenandoah Valley Rail Trail, Eastern Shore Trail, and Fall Line, by maintaining the proposed outdoor recreation budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker.
The next speaker is Leanne Rayner.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the House and Senate Finance Committee. We appreciate your hard work at during these unprecedented times and the agility that you must have to deal with COVID. My name is Leanne Rayner, and I live in Henrico County, and I want to thank you for the amazing bipartisan support for the funding of the $286 million for the Virginia Agricultural Cost Share, $100 million for SLAP, $165 million for sewer overflows, and $69 million for the upgrading the aging infrastructure, and $14 million for the Virginia Department of Forestry. So some of the previous speakers has touched on some of the details, so I'm going to skip over that. I'm currently a clean water captain for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I lead a group called RVA Green Drinks, which is a monthly networking group where we speak on sustainability. A resident of Bryan Parkway, which has 466 homes, that's just north of Bryan Park. And I have 15 years of state service, including 8 years with the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. I was a pre-treatment coordinator for DEQ. And for those unfamiliar with that role, we would go and inspect the publicly owned treatment works, or POTWs, and the industries that discharge to them. During that time, my reports included lots of the ongoing sewer overflows with no resolution. And so your funding would greatly improve that. And then the quality of the water and in our environment, which everyone benefits from. Specifically, our neighborhood applied for the Trees for Clean Water grants in 2020 and 2021. We got support from the Friends of Bryan Park, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, Lewis Skinner. We received almost 50 native trees from this grant. As a side benefit was the enormous camaraderie that this project gave us. We had, in 1950, our neighborhood had trees that were maple trees, and it caused infrastructure problems for the county. And so we got support from the county for planting these new native trees that wouldn't cause this infrastructure. And so we're very excited about the benefits from not having as much water go to our absorb the water. And Bryan Park has had some significant infrastructure problems and significant flooding, and so this will benefit us as well. And the grants were seamless and easy, and so we really urge you to continue the support for this historic funding. Thanks for your time, and
thank you, Ms. Raynard. Thank you. Next speaker, staff.
Next speaker is Kat Anthony.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Anthony. Good morning.
My name is Kat Anthony. I work for the Virginia Capitol Trail Foundation, and I'm also the president of the Virginia Trails Alliance, and I'm here to speak about the funding for multi-use trails in both the caboose budget and also in FY23 in the governor's budget. As many of y'all know, the Capitol Trail is the second most visited attraction in the Richmond region. We were very, very excited to see that there was additional funding for other trails like the Fall Line, Eastern Shore, and the Shenandoah Rail Trail. The pandemic has resulted in increased demands on public parks and trails, and this funding can help with vital public infrastructure for transportation in a statewide trail system. Trails promote walkability, prosperity, and build resiliency. And to be very blunt, trails are jobs and economic development for our region. It's also helpful with floodplains, managed stormwater, and provides tree canopies. This is a low-cost transportation option and reduces traffic and air pollution. I'm very hopeful and grateful for this to be in the budget, and I hope you will support multi-use trails in our region and in the end, a statewide trail system. Thank you for your service, and I hope you will support this. Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Thomas Midget.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Good morning, Mr. Midget.
Good morning. My name is Thomas Midget, Program Director for Central Virginia FAME at Richard Bland College. It's a program that was launched with support from Go Virginia and is making a difference in the lives of young people and supporting the manufacturing industry in our area. I'm a Navy veteran that worked as an aviation electrician, which truly aided me in many areas, but specifically with the hands-on learning that I was able to receive. A couple years after transitioning from the military, I found my way into education at Petersburg High School, teaching electronics. During that time, I established job shadowing for our students at Rolls-Royce and Prince George, something we can continue to do as I moved into administration as a dean and then assistant principal, supervising math and CTE. During the virtual school year, I was connected with a local manufacturer, EPT Incorporated in Chester, and we established an in-person internship that took place for students, even during the midst of COVID and virtual school. During this time, my passion for connecting young people to excellent careers grew even more. And when I became aware of FAME. FAME stands for the Federation for Advanced Manufacturing Education. FAME is a national organization, and we are the first chapter in Virginia. FAME is an industry-driven collaborative work study where students in the program take classes at Richard Bland College for 2 days a week and work 3 days a week as a trainee towards becoming an advanced manufacturing technician. The academic load consists of a Gen Ed core and technical core working towards an associate's. The students work for one of 9 manufacturing companies in the greater Richmond and Crater region, such as Ampac Fine Chemicals, Civica, Flow, Sabra, Niagara Bottling, Blueprint Automation, Amstead Braille, EPT Incorporated, and GD Cohesia. At the end of the 2-year program, it is the goal that students are offered full-time employment with their initial sponsoring company, where FAME nationally has a success rate between 85 and 9% year over year. The program launched late last spring, and even while students were graduating high school, we were still able to start our first cohort with students 7 students this past August. In a short amount of time, the lives of young people are being greatly impacted for the better. One of our students is from Smithfield, Virginia, working for Amstead Braille. He's doing an excellent job within their additive manufacturing department, making a competitive wage and even having stock options. Another young man from Prince George works for EPT, receiving valuable experience as a machine operator and mechatronics apprentice, while earning strong pay and having his college paid for. This chapter is uniquely positioned to have students from outside the area join the program due to Richard Bland's on-campus housing, where one of our students is even from Annapolis, Maryland, working for GD Cohesia. We receive frequent feedback from each of our industry partner companies, and the students have done an excellent job and are a refreshing addition to their departments and the company as a whole, helping to fill the gap of skilled technicians. One of the highlights for me is their professionalism, respectful nature, work ethic, and their soft skills that these young people have. While these topics are covered throughout FAME, it's encouraging to see young people who have these skills and values. The Central Virginia FAME chapter was established by generous Go Virginia grants. Other entities such as Prince George County and the Cameron Foundation have also contributed to the program, seeing the need for a program like FAME. The objective for Central Virginia FAME is for local companies to hire local candidates and for these students to complete the program with little to no student loan debt and launch into a career with a high trajectory. This program would not have been possible without the assistance of Go Virginia. I hope that the funding is available for years to come for Go Virginia to assist similar programs that advance young people's lives for the better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Midget. Thank you. Staff, next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Wyatt Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and distinguished members of this committee. I appreciate the warm welcome. My name is Wyatt Gordon. I work on land use and transportation policy for Virginia Conservation Network. This pandemic has scrambled a lot of what we thought we knew about our society and our needs, but one thing it has underscored is the need for accessible, sustainable, and resilient transportation infrastructure. From new trails funding that connect rural communities and bring new jobs to towns, to dollars that support public transit investment and operations as the backbone of job access across the Commonwealth. There are a lot of really good things this budget can do for our future. I'd also like to ask that you consider any support that you can provide to electrifying our transportation system in order to reduce the harmful pollution that we've seen disproportionately impacts the health of communities along highways and other busy corridors. So I will keep it short and just say thank you for the time. I wish you all a healthy and productive session and a wonderful time getting through the rest of the powerful testimony to come.
Thank you, and the same to you. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Jason Young.
Well, good morning, Senators and delegates. My name is Jason Young. I'm Executive Director of Community Brain Injury Services and also Chair of the Virginia Alliance of Brain Injury Service Providers. I know you've heard from Ann McDonald and a couple of our other clients and members that we serve at our programs, and I don't want to be repetitive of what they said, but just a little bit, Community Brain Injury Services, we are the designated safety net provider for an 18 locality service area that encompasses Metro Richmond and the Virginia Tidewater Peninsula area. Within that area, we provide case management as well as clubhouse services. One of our budget priorities this year is to expand community-based case management, one of the safety net services, to every area of the state. I frankly think it's unacceptable that right now there are 18% of the localities, if you live there, you don't have access to a safety net service if you're a survivor of a brain injury. A lot of those areas are contiguous to our service areas, so we do get calls from those areas. And while we try to assist individuals who live in those unserved areas, quite frankly, while we try that, we're not located in those areas, and those areas deserve their own services that are part of those communities. And Senator Ruff, I know you're on here, so I wanted to thank you for featuring our second budget amendment, which is our housing specialist position. This would allow us to both work on a macro and micro level to address some of the myriad housing issues our client population faces, from working with our local housing entities and developing local and regional solutions to making sure persons with brain injury have access to safe, affordable housing, to working on a micro clinical level with individuals in our services to make sure that they themselves are living in the safest environment possible. And lastly, I just want to take a couple seconds. I see Delegate Cox sitting back there. I know he is retiring. Delegate Cox, I just wanted to say thank you. You've been a true champion for brain injury services. You've done so much for us. Thank you so much for everything that you've done, for your leadership, for growing our community. We would not be where we are without your leadership. And to the other delegates and senators on there, we're losing a real champion in Delegate Cox. So I hope that you all consider stepping up and fulfilling his quite big shoes in that capacity. Thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to seeing you during session.
Thank you, Mr. Young. And we totally agree with you in terms of with Mr. Cox transitioning and his retirement. Thank you so much. At this time, next speaker, staff.
The next speaker is Katina Harris.
Good morning. You're muted, Ms.
Good
Harris.
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Katina Harris, and I am the proud president of the Richmond Education Association. We currently won our fight for collective bargaining in Richmond. It gave us an enormous amount of hope. But as you all know, that some of the things in our public schools that has plagued us for years was the lack of resources. Our scholars and families, they rely on school staff to supply so many of their needs out of our own pockets. The full funding of our schools is of the utmost importance. The educator and ESP pay raises and the funding of K-12 are vital for our students' social, emotional, and academic growth. There's a need for a more serious effort to bring our averages to the national average. So as you review the budget, please take inflation and living costs into consideration as well. As educators, we care about what's best for our students, our schools, and of course, our colleagues. This is not about raising taxes on the vast majority of us and other citizens and businesses, because majority of them already pay more than their fair share. We're calling on the legislature to act with courage to protect school funding and to seek reforms that will balance Virginia's economy. Only then will we have the funding we need to provide the quality of education for Virginia's children and what they deserve. I'm asking you to protect public school funding for the future of our children. I appreciate your time and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Next speaker.
The next speaker is Austin Counts.
Good morning,
Mr. Counts.
Good morning. Good morning, senators, delegates, committee staff, and thank you for the opportunity here today. I'm with Appalachian Voices based in Norton, and Appalachian Voices asks that the committee considers the addition of 2 budget items that will help support economic development in the Coalfield region. After eliminating the state coal tax credits in 2021, the General Assembly tasks Virginia Energy with leading a work group and reporting its recommendations on how the Commonwealth can provide economic transition support to the Coalfield region. The Re-Energized Southwest report recognized that the new vision for the region must demonstrate a broad mission beyond just boosting employment and income. It must also consider quality of life issues such as education, healthcare, housing, childcare, tourism, and land use. The report is clear that re-energizing the region will be complex, necessitating an unprecedented cooperation between federal, state, regional, and local stakeholders. The report specifically proposes a new Coalfield task force to coordinate across state agencies to identify and maximize opportunities for Virginia to more effectively support economic revitalization in the region. Our local governments and planning districts in the Coalfield communities express a need for more capacity to take advantage of these federal and state funding opportunities, as many do not have the staff capacity or resources to identify and apply for all the funding opportunities. We ask for more state staff capacity that would be focused on providing planning capacity and grant support for the Coalfield region to maximize local applications for federal and state programs. This capacity is especially needed as the new and expanded funding opportunities have been created through the federal bipartisan infrastructure bill, such as increased funding for Appalachian Regional Commission, abandoned coal mine reclamation, and brownfields. Additionally, the new staff capacity would coordinate the proposed Coalfield Interagency Task Force outlined in the Re-Energized Southwest Virginia report. More state staff funding and capacity would help fulfill the promise made to the Coalfield communities when the tax credits were repealed. Secondly, Appalachian Voices asked the committee to fund the Virginia Brownfields and Coal Mine Renewable Energy Grant Fund and Program, which was established during the 2021 Virginia General Assembly session. This new program supports the development of renewable energy projects sited on formerly mined lands or brownfields in the region, helping to boost economic development in disadvantaged communities while also conserving forests and valuable agricultural land. However, the program currently does not have any funding. Providing funding for this program will help create jobs in both environmental reclamation and renewable energy development, bringing new life to hazardous lands in areas throughout the Commonwealth. Lastly, Appalachian Voices would like to express support for the governor's proposed investment in the Clean Energy Advisory Board's solar rebate program for low and moderate income residents. This program will
sir, your time has expired.
Solar energy throughout the Commonwealth. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Counts, for your sharing with us today. At this time, the next speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The next speaker is Blair St. Ledger Olson.
Sorry, I just jumped right there.
That's okay. Good morning.
Chair,
Good morning.
Members of the committee. Special shout out to my fellow Hollins alum, Delegate Carr. Thank you all for having me today. My name is Blair St. Ledger Olson. I'm an electric vehicle advocate based in Charlottesville, Virginia. And today I have the pleasure of representing the National Nonprofit Climate Cabinet. We've heard about a number of worthy causes today that deserve state level support, including our environment. I'm here today to support pro-electric vehicle policies, such as the state level EV rebate. In 2021, the General Assembly actually codified the most equitably designed electric vehicle incentive in the country. But as Austin just said, it was one of the programs that was left without funding. I want to underscore that this program is significantly different from the federal tax credit. The proposed program actually applies to both new and used vehicles, unlike the federal tax credit. And because it's a point of sale rebate, not a retroactive tax credit, it truly lowers the upfront cost of an electric vehicle. Furthermore, this structure actually provides additional funding to those low and moderate income Virginians, which is the exact opposite of the federal tax credit that rewards those with a higher tax liability. That's why this structure is so important for driving EV sales, and it's proven to expand the accessibility of this new technology. While every electric vehicle on the Commonwealth's roads benefits our environment and our public health, most importantly, transportation pollution disproportionately impacts Black and Brown communities in Virginia, as well as nationwide. Furthermore, expanded EV adoption will create significant job growth and significant economic benefits for the Commonwealth, as Virginians here spend $25 million every single day on imported fossil fuels because Virginia does not create any of its own. So as my good friend Wyatt Gordon mentioned, combined with expanded public transit access and safer bikeable and walkable communities like Brantley mentioned earlier as well, EVs are a critical component to tackling the climate crisis and safeguarding a prosperous and resilient future. I'd ask the committees to support the electric vehicle adoption in the Commonwealth and supporting the electric vehicle rebate program. And I thank you for your time. Have a good one, y'all. Stay safe.
Thank you. The same to you. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Shanta Mills.
Ms. Mills, you may unmute.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think Mrs. Mills is here. Next speaker, please. Oh, yes, she's there. She's here. Good morning, Ms. Mills.
Ms. Mills, are you there?
She's muted. I see her name. Ms. Mills, are you there? Why don't we go to the next speaker, and then if she...
Madam Chair, that actually is our final speaker.
That's our final speaker. Ms. Mills, last call. Okay. Well, I think then... Is she? Okay. All right. Thank you, staff. Well, this is the conclusion of our public budget hearing this morning. We thank you for those who were in attendance and for the speakers who have shared with us this morning. And thank the staff for helping us to get through this. At this time, I don't know if there's any statement from any of the colleagues at this time. Okay, well, if there is none, then this is the conclusion of a public hearing. And so we ask that you'll say to have a wonderful day, a great day, and look forward to seeing my colleagues on next week. I do want to say to Delegate Cox that we certainly have appreciated your leadership. You have been, no doubt, just a leader in the General Assembly, not just as the speaker, but just working across the aisles to help bring about transition and transformation in the lives of Virginians. And so I do want to personally and publicly say thank you for your service and all that you've done. And we'll probably see you again somewhere. So
thank you, Delegate McQuinn. That's very nice. I've loved working with you. And shout out to Jason Young, too. That was very nice with the brain injury. Hope all y'all have a blessed new year. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Well, Senator McClellan, did you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say thank you, Madam and Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. Thank you. You all have a happy new year to you once again, and we will see you very soon. And thank you, staff. Thank you. You all have a good day.